The previous part ended with Yu Damdiok and the other hunters making it to the boss floor. Damn, the opponent they will face is the Minotaur, so can they beat the dungeon boss? Let's start the storyline. Slowly they opened the door and entered the dark room. Mr. Namgung said he didn't see anything, but Yu Damdiok said that the monster was right in front of them. Right after that, 2 torches lit up on the throne. Now you can see a Minotaur monster sitting on its throne calmly. Mr. Namgung immediately felt tremendous pressure from the monster. Even so, he was happy to meet a strong opponent. Mr. Namgung guessed that, from his position, it was likely that the Minotaur monster would not attack first, so they have time to strategize. Suddenly, Yu Damdiok's system appeared, notifying him that the human sacrifice for the Minotaur had begun. Select 5 candidates to be sacrificed. Yu Damdiok didn't understand the warning. He looked at Mr. Namgung, who was busy organizing his team, and realized he was the only one who got notifications like that from the system. This young man thought that it might be a new system, which made it easier for them to put on a show to clear the dungeon more easily. So Yu Damdiok thought about sharing that information with Mr. Namgung. Yu Damdiok immediately approached Mr. Namgung to discuss his plans. At first, he was ignored, but then this young man said the information he would convey was related to the solution to clearing the dungeon. Only after that did Mr. Namgung listen to himself. Meanwhile, the man wearing mask looked annoyed and angry until the fists in his hands were shaking violently. He was annoyed because Yu Damdiok always stole his opportunities, but this time he won't stay silent. The arrogant man quietly approached the Minotaur's throne with a crossbow in his hand. He thought the strategy was only for cowards and weaklings. He didn't want to move according to Yu Damdiok's wishes anymore. He wants to show the strength of his talent of aim talent. He thought he only needed to hit the monster's target once, after which he would be promoted. Feeling that the distance was not close enough, the stupid man took another step forward. Yu Damdiok, who saw his behavior, immediately shouted for the masked man to stop. But the man angrily said that Yu Damdiok only wanted all the praise. So now he was the one who would defeat the silent dungeon boss with his abilities. Then the man took one more step, immediately triggering a warning alarm. The system gave an emergency warning that someone had crossed the boundary of this labyrinth's boss room. So the sacrifice candidate will be chosen randomly. Instantly, the bodies of everyone in a certain room immediately couldn't move, as if they were being held down by a very large energy. Even Mr. Namgung panicked when he felt this very strong sensation. Even so, Mr. Namgung stood quickly in front of his Songgong guild member, the masked man, while asking if he was stupid. So he didn't realize what he had just done. Yu Damdiok warns them that this is not the time to argue, because now the Minotaur monster was standing in front of the 5 of them. The big monster roared at its 5 victims. Now the 5 of them can't move anywhere because a very strong dimensional dividing wall has been created. It was at times like this that the masked Songgong man realized how dire the situation he had to face was. The man banged on the protective wall and asked to be let out. But everything was too late. The Minotaur monster started going on a rampage and attacking people. Mr. Namgung reminded everyone inside the protective wall to widen the formation and not to panic. They must continue the strategy with existing people. Lord Namgung asked those remaining to get into formation while he distracted the monster. Mr. Namgung moved quickly toward the Minotaur monster while avoiding the monster's powerful attacks. Then the guild master jumped and attacked the huge monster's body from above. Mr. Namgung's members who were outside the protective wall thought that the master's attack was indeed very powerful. They were confident that the master would be able to defeat the monster. Yu Damdiok also thought that Lord Namgung's attack was very powerful, but he realized it was no match for the defense of the Minotaur monster's body. Likewise, Mr. Namgung immediately cursed in annoyance when he realized that his attack could not hurt the monster, as if he had just hit a very hard piece of armor. While Mr. Namgung was lost in thought, Damdiok warned the adult man to get away because suddenly a Minotaur monster attacked him. The guild master quickly jumped to dodge, but his arm was still affected by the attack from the Minotaur monster. It was at this moment that Mr. Namgung realized that the monster was not able to dodge, but he felt it was unnecessary, because the monster's body is too strong to be destroyed. Mr. Namgung also looks annoyed because currently, his arm is bleeding even though earlier the monster only took care of it a little. He thought that if he was hit by the monster's attack one more time, he might die immediately. So Lord Namgung warned everyone around him to prepare a siege formation. So all the members immediately stood up in all directions to prepare to attack the Minotaur monster. Mr. Namgung told them to retrieve the information while avoiding the attacks of the Minotaur monster. They must succeed in finding the monster's weak point. Yu Damdiok admitted that the orders spoken by Mr. Namgung were very clear and fast. He was sure that a veteran like Mr. Namgung would have extensive experience in fighting in the dungeon. But according to him, that's the only good news that Mr. Namgung has now. Yu Damdiok concluded that the monster did not chase those who were scattered like this because it seemed as if distance was not important to him. And sure enough, Yu Damdiok felt a very strong electric current flowing under his feet. Then the Minotaur monster raised its right arm, which was holding the axe, very high. Damdiok could feel the electric current that was the same as Thor's power from the powerful electric attack. Seeing that the monster was about to attack, Mr. Namgung immediately ordered his members to stop the monster. Meanwhile, he will move forward because he sees gaps and opportunities. Just at that moment, the monster began to emit very dangerous electrical energy. Damdiok tried to warn them all as it would be useless against the monster now. But Mr. Damdiok realized that he had made the wrong decision. Even so, Damdiok still tried to run as fast as possible, then kicked the monster's head so that it wouldn't carry out its powerful lightning attack. However, Damdiok also made the wrong decision because the monster got even angrier and created an even more powerful lightning attack that threw everyone around him very hard. The remaining guild members outside the labyrinth trembled in fear seeing their leader fall with just one attack. Currently, the 4 of them are lying weak with their bodies covered in wounds and blood. All the members outside the protective wall were confused because they couldn't get in to help others. They want to help before it's too late, but they are confused because they can't get inside the protective wall. Stupid Mana could only bang on the protective wall while continuing to ask for help from his members outside the wall. Damdiok tried to regain consciousness. He cursed in annoyance because the Minotaur monster was not injured in the slightest after he attacked the monster with all his might. This young man realized he had lived a very sad life, even though he hopes to become strong after gaining talent. But now he is in this condition. This young man asked in his heart, would he die silly like this? But then Damdiok's hand touched a sword and started smiling. This youth pledge realized that there was something he had never tried. Damdiok slowly got up and said that dying like this would disrupt his plans to die peacefully. But he didn't endure all that suffering just to die in a place like this. Damdiok tightly gripped the hilt of the sword in his hand while channeling great energy into the sword. Damdiok smiled and told the monster to prepare itself because Damdiok would not die without a fight. Damdiok activated the SS class talent sword, which looked amazing. This time Damdiok stood alone facing the Minotaur monster. In his remaining consciousness, Lord Namgung realized that his sword couldn't even scratch the monster. So this grown man realized that the monster could not be fought by a person who had just wielded a sword. Mr. Namgung wanted to tell Damduk to run, but his voice wouldn't come out due to his serious injury. Mr. Namgung felt sorry for Damduk and apologized to him. The Minotaur monster immediately advanced to attack Damdiok. But unexpectedly by everyone, Damdiok also ran forward to attack the monster. And what surprised everyone, even more, was that this young man managed to cut one of the Minotaur monsters. Damdiok thought that it was a gamble at first, but he could feel it after he held the sword, that he could defeat the monster. Even though it was the first time he saw a real sword, he felt that the sword had become a part of his body. Damdiok smiled broadly, realizing that this was a talent that was very related to him. The Minotaur monster turned around in anger. He immediately ran quickly towards Damdiok. But this time the young man not only managed to dodge but managed to attack the big arm of the Minotaur monster. Mr. Namgung was stunned to realize that there were 6 consecutive slashes in an instant. Maybe even more than 7 slashes. But he couldn't even see such a fast movement with his eyes. According to Mr. Namgung, the attack was truly extraordinary. He didn't expect that Damdiok was not a martial artist, but he was a swordsman. However, Mr. Namgung realized that Damdiok's attack was still too shallow. Damdiok himself realized that, because it turns out his attack only created a slight scratch on the Minotaur monster's arm. Meanwhile, the masked man panicked even more and shouted hysterically, saying that it was impossible to win this just at their current level. The culprit of all these problems could only scream in panic and continue to bang on the protective wall, asking to be expelled from the protective wall. Mr. Namgung thinks that Damdiok's ability seems unreasonable, because his consecutive slashes can already be compared to the greatest swordsman from the east, who turns out to be the stupid man wearing mask. Mr. Namgung realizes that Damdiok does have extraordinary abilities, but the sword he uses will be broken soon. Damdiok also cursed in his heart because his sword already had many cracks from just a few slashes. At this rate, he couldn't use the sword any longer, so Damdiok concluded that he had to aim. The Minotaur monster's vitality was only in one attack. Damdiok launched again quickly toward the monster while aiming for its vital points, but the monster tried to stop him and attacked him. Damduk tried to attack while continuing to avoid the monster. This young man also activated the talent of combat to strengthen his attacks. He tried to aim for the monster's eyes but was blocked easily. While the monster's attention was being diverted by the sword, Damdiok immediately kicked the monster's head from below and held his sword again while stabbing a vital point right in the middle of the monster's stomach. Unfortunately, the Minotaur monster realized Damdiok's plan and immediately deployed both arms to attack Damdiok. This young man was knocked back and realized that his sword had suffered quite serious damage again. Yu Damdiok realized that the sword had reached its limit, so a direct attack did not affect the Minotaur monster. Damdiok thought that the next attack would be his last chance. If only he managed to open a gap from the monster. The Minotaur monster considered its axe again as it prepared to create an extremely powerful lightning attack. It was at this moment that Yu Damdiok smiled broadly and realized that he saw a gap there. Mr. Namgung panicked when he saw the technique the monster had used to knock himself out earlier. But this veteran was also surprised when he saw that Damdiok had a very big swordsman aura. Mr. Namgung was stunned to realize that the young man would face the attack of the Minotaur monster directly. Mr. Namgung tried to get up and was determined to help Damdiok no matter what. Suddenly this veteran remembered that Damdiok once said that he could fight without looking at his opponent. So Mr. Namgung immediately called his member who was washing away fear, namely Maske, to carry out an action that he had planned. Meanwhile, Damdiok targets the monster in front of him with a sword while thinking that this is the last chance. He had to succeed in striking the monster's vital point in just one attack. Damdiok and the Minotaur monster faced each other before finally, they both jumped with full strength to attack each other's opponents. When the dinosaur monster raised its arm, Yu Damdiok aimed at the monster's vital point on its chest. But the sword he was holding couldn't hold on at all and was directly shattered. Yu Damdiok realized that it was over and he would be crushed under the attack of the Minotaur monster. But suddenly this young man got a sword and said that this was the end for the mad cow monster. The one who handed Damdiok a new sword was the masked man. He shouted, asking Yu Damdiok to defeat the Minotaur monster. Now the clash of power between the sword and the axe shines again. But if you look more closely, it seems that Damdiok succeeded in stabbing the Minotaur monster's vital point right in its body. Outside the dungeon, people started to worry because it had been 5 hours since the monsters had come out of the dungeon gate. They started to wonder what was going on in there. Finally, one of the journalists saw the silhouettes of several people walking slowly out of the dungeon. Damdiok, who was standing in front while helping Mr. Namgung walk, told them all that there was light in front of them and that meant they could get out. But suddenly Yu Damdiok remembered something and asked Mr. Namgung, how did the veteran know that he could catch the sword thrown from behind him? Mr. Namgung answered that he remembered that Damdiok once said that he could fight without looking. Therefore he concluded that there must be a possibility that Damdiok could also catch something without seeing it. Mr. Namgung realized just betting there. Yu Damdiok smiled when he heard that. He was grateful for getting such significant help because he almost became a state there. Yu Damdiok felt grateful that he was safe because of Mr. Namgung. But Mr. Namgung said that Damdiok was the one who saved them all. All members of Master Namgung's guild smiled happily while surrounding Damdiok. In front of the dungeon gate, Mr. Namgung asked Damdiok to make a statement because he was the #1 contributor in completing this dungeon. Damdiok was shocked to hear this. He asked Mr. Namgung once again if it was true that he was the #1 contributor. Mr. Namgung smiled to confirm this. Yu Damdiok, who saw Mr. Namgung's confession, was shocked. Because he used to be someone who was looked down upon for not having talent, this young man still remembers one very terrible day in his life before he had talent. But now he has turned into a young man who is very different from his previous self. Yu Damdiok raised the fist on his right arm, causing the people waiting in front of the dungeon to cheer enthusiastically, realizing that the danger had passed because of Damdiok. After nightfall, Yu Damdiok went to the hospital to see where his mother was. Yu Damdiok felt very relieved and grateful that his mother was okay. But then the television in the room broadcasts the moment Damdiok comes out of the dungeon and is interviewed as the most dedicated contributor to Dungeon Clear this time. At that time, Yu Damdiok was pressed to tell him how to clear the dungeon, because Damdiok had completed the dungeon in a very fast time. One of the reporters even asked what Damdiok's name was and which guild he came from. Because he had never faced journalists who asked him lots of questions, Yu Damdiok panicked and asked the reporters to ask questions one by one. Yu Damdiok finally answered that the guild or division didn't feel important to him. He realized there was a difficult situation, but he was just trying his best to protect the people he cared about. Damdiok's statement was captured by journalists as a form of sarcasm for the guild union, which has been very arrogant recently. Embarrassed to see his interview, which looked embarrassing, Yu Damdiok immediately turned off the television with a red face. However, even though the television was turned off, Damdiok's cell phone received a notification that he had managed to hit a lizardman monster on the street. Yu Damdiok was surprised that the journalists were able to take pictures when the situation was so full of panic. According to him, the journalists were scary. Suddenly the system appeared notifying him that Yu Damdiok had succeeded in getting 1000 fame and divine power. Yu Damdiok was shocked to hear this notification because he knew it was a condition written in the job service advertisement. The system appears to notify that because Damdiok has reached 1000 divine powers, he has the opportunity to open a new job advertisement. Damdiok knew it was a golden opportunity, so he jumped right in to see some of the jobs he could get with his new skills. Unexpectedly, he saw an advertisement looking for jobs for security at the Hephaestus forging factory. They need an interim manager. Damdiok thought that it was quite an easy job, but because he had been working hard since yesterday, this young man wanted to rest first. But suddenly the system turned red and warned that 3 novice gods were applying for the job. Damdiok immediately panicked and quickly applied for the job because he didn't want to lose a very easy job. Because of this, Damdiok was immediately transferred to the location of the god Hephaestus quickly. Damdiok always struggles every time he lands. He complains that they always send someone out in a rude manner. Damdiok sat down and saw in front of him there was a large ball of energy. This young man wondered, was he in the right place? And is that place the forge of Lord Hephaestus? Damdiok felt that the place was very hot. He even mumbled that now he felt like he was in a sauna. Damdiok was surprised when he said, "Does Mr. Hephaestus not have air conditioning?" Suddenly, a big man appeared behind Damdiok and asked if Damdiok was the new job applicant. Damdiok confirmed this, so the big man introduced himself as Hephaestus. Hearing this, Damdiok panicked and immediately bowed. He was worried that Mr. Hephaestus would hear his curses. When this young man panicked, Mr. Hephaestus smiled and said that what was said about Damdiok was true. Damdiok's caring attitude towards humans makes him work as hard as Thor. Lord Hephaestus laughed when he said it was only natural that the grumpy Thor would like Damdiok so much, because he has guts. Seeing Mr. Hephaestus' friendly attitude made Damdiok think that this god did not hear what he said. But suddenly Mr. Hephaestus said that Damdiok was too brave and ordered him to install air conditioning in his forge. Hearing this made Damdiok bow to the ground because he felt guilty when he apologized. Mr. Hephaestus didn't take it seriously. He immediately invited the Damdiok to go around and he would explain the Damdiok's duties. Before that, Lord Hephaestus took a trumpet and said that Damdiok had to meet them first. Then the god blew his trumpet so loudly that the Damdiok had to cover his ears very tightly. As the trumpet blew, several dwarf tribe men appeared before them. Mr. Hephaestus introduces Damdiok to them as the new manager. They greeted the Damdiok in unison. With an awkward smile, Damdiok thanked the dwarves. Damdiok honestly said that he was not used to working in a forge, but he will do his best. Hearing this, Mr. Hephaestus asked Damdiok not to be modest. Then Mr. Hephaestus whispered to the Damdiok saying that the dwarves were quite skilled at making weapons, but their hands were a little long, aka they liked to steal. According to Lord Hephaestus, the dwarves' attitude is a bit problematic, because according to him, small dogs or small animals are usually wilder than large ones. Damdiok seemed to understand what Mr. Hephaestus meant. Mr. Hephaestus said that he often lost something every time he started to focus on work. Even the pendant that Mr. Hephaestus had prepared for Freya disappeared last week. Mr. Hephaestus massaged his temples in annoyance, but Damdiok thought that the dwarves didn't look like thieves, because the dwarves looked neat and classy. Lord Hephaestus said that he had to take a day off to climb Mount Olympus. Lord Hephaestus hopes he doesn't hear bad news in one day. But just in case, Lord Hephaestus took a sword from his bag and handed the Hercules mace sword to Damdiok. The sword is a replica of the one used by Hercules to defeat the lion Memia. The mace had identical precision. Damdiok thought that the mace was too great. Lord Hephaestus finally created a dimensional gate and ordered Damdiok to take care of forging it. Feeling something strange, Damdiok asked what his job was. Why did Lord Hephaestus just leave the mace behind? What should Damdiok do? Mr. Hephaestus smiled broadly and asked why Damdiok was still asking. Anyway, as long as the Damdiok is stronger than the dwarves, then it's fine. Mr. Hephaestus immediately laughed and waved his hands innocently. Meanwhile, Damdiok felt deadly dark energy from behind him. The dwarves were looking at him with anger, proudly said that he had just got a cool weapon, and that weapon could easily injure the dwarves. But the dwarves pointed various firearms at Damdiok so that this young man could not move. It was at this moment that the leader of the dwarves said adios to the Damdiok. Finally, Damdiok sank into darkness. After a while, Damdiok slowly opened his eyes. He heard the voices of 2 men talking. He asked in his heart, "Who are they?" Damdiok heard the 2 dwarfs guarding him talking about the goddess Freya's necklace. They thought they would become rich after successfully selling the goddess's necklace. Damdiok cursed and wanted to attack them, but he just realized that his arms were currently tied behind his body, and he was sitting helplessly under a large pole. The dwarves were surprised to see Damdiok wake up early, because the sedative they use is quite strong. So they suspect that Damdiok is also a god because he can tolerate the drug. Damdiok said that they have no fear at all. But did they think it would be okay after doing this to one of the 12 main gods of Olympus in his forge? Damdiok tries to scare them by saying this is their last chance, so they have to let themselves go and stop everything before the situation gets worse. But the dwarves laughed loudly. They said that they were not afraid to hear the name Hephaestus. It was at this time that a bald dwarf appeared and reported to the 2 mustachioed dwarfs that they had gathered all the valuable objects so they could leave now. The dwarf guarding Damdiok says he will join soon. But before that, he will give Damdiok boy another dose of sedative so he won't be loud. While the two dwarves were distracted, Damdiok immediately cut the rope binding his arms with the small dagger he had hidden. The dwarves didn't expect that they would send an idiot guy to be a part-time worker. This way their work becomes easier. Damdiok warns that they will definitely regret it. But the two dwarves laughed and mocked him. It was at this exact moment that the ropes binding Damdiok's arms came loose. Then as quickly as possible he hit the dwarves with Thor's club until they were thrown and badly injured. Damdiok then tied them both up so tightly that their entire bodies and legs couldn't move. Damdiok said that they were the ones who forced him to use violence. Then this young man kept a small dagger right under his sleeve while being grateful because he followed a mysterious girl's advice to always carry a weapon even if it was small. Before leaving, Damdiok saw a shiny object among the dwarfs who had been tied up. When he looked more closely, it turned out to be Goddess Freya's necklace, and he immediately took it. In another building, the bald dwarves had already finished loading all the sparkling mining materials. He reported to his boss that their task of packing all the mining materials was complete. Several other dwarves also reported that they had kept all their armor and other valuable items. Before they left, their leader, the Redfish, wanted to say something, so the entire dwarf clan had to listen to him. Lord Red first stood in front of all the dwarf tribe people and said that they were a tribe blessed with the spirit of the burning mountains, and they are the best miners and brave warriors. They work for rewards, but they are proud of their skills. But the dreamer asked loudly, have they ever been treated with honor in this place? He said that the owner of the place, Mr. Hephaestus, had humiliated them, and today they will take revenge for the insults they have received so far. When Mr. Redfist shouted that we must take revenge on Hephaestus, all the people in his tribe also got excited and shouted the same thing. Damdiok, who had been hiding in one corner of the room and heard Redfist's speech, started to get annoyed. This young man considered the dwarf tribe to be like a group of ants. But then there was a bald man from the dwarf tribe who reported to his leader that Damdiok's guards had been defeated. Redfist calmly blew out the smoke from his cigar and called Damdiok, saying that from now on they would sweep the place clean. But what he hated most was only Hephaestus. They have nothing to do with Damdiok. So Redfist already knows that Damdiok will definitely not accept it if he dies like this. He will be willing to give Damdiok a choice. That was to help their tribe plunder this place and become their accomplice, or go back to where they came from and pretend nothing had happened. According to Redfist, it would be better for Damdiok if he could think clearly so he wouldn't do stupid things just for the sake of a little pay. At his hiding place, Damdiok thinks that if he runs away from there, his reputation will be bad. Hephaestus and Thor would instantly hate him. Then maybe he won't be able to get another part-time job in the future. So Damdiok can't let that happen because he has gone through a lot for this ability. And if he was caught betraying Hephaestus, he would definitely be killed immediately in the forge. The choice for Damdiok is to fight the dwarves or be killed by the god Hephaestus. Damdiok cursed, realizing that this was not an extraordinary part-time job but like a death sentence for him. Finally, Damdiok came out of his hiding place, raising both arms as if to surrender. Red first thought it was the right decision. When Damdiok confronted the dwarf leader, he asked shouldn't the dwarf tribe be partners with the god Hephaestus. But why did they go this far? What if the god Hephaestus noticed? He is one of the 12 main gods of Olympus. No one knew what would happen if he got angry. Damdiok tries to scare them by saying that the god Hephaestus might throw them all alive into the furnace and give their bones to Cerberus in hell. Damdiok excitedly pointed at their faces and asked if they weren't afraid of the god's punishment. Without much ado, one of the long-haired men from the dwarf tribe immediately answered Damdiok's question by almost shooting him in the head. The dwarf asked the idiot Damdiok to just shut up. He says Damdiok was too bold to say all that, so he doesn't deserve their forgiveness. The man wanted to kill Damdiok straight away by shooting him in the leg. Damdiok could only keep jumping to avoid the shots. Redfist finally stopped his partner and advanced towards Damdiok. Redfist is annoyed because Damdiok called Hephaestus a great master craftsman. He accused Damdiok of not knowing anything. So the Red Fist will tell you the truth about Hephaestus to Damdiok. Namely, all of Hephaestus' weapons are rubbish. Damdiok was immediately stunned to hear this. Tia was shocked to hear directly from Hephaestus' servant that the god's weapon was actually just rubbish. Damdiok was clearly shocked and almost couldn't believe what the red fish said, that Hephaestus' work was just rubbish. But then Damdiok confirmed this and thought that Hephaestus was a thief. Mr. Redfist then told the story that one day, Mr. Hephaestus came to the mountains where they lived and said that the sword they had created was extraordinary. Then Mr. Hephaestus asked if the dwarf tribe wanted to work with him. Hephaestus promises to provide everything brands need. But after they followed Hephaestus, the dwarves felt like they were just being made slaves by Hephaestus. Redfist even said that Hephaestus didn't pay them anything. They also didn't get the free time promised by Hephaestus. They only continued working for 6 hours, 5 days a week. Redfist says that their passionate soul is being destroyed. With great vehemence, Redfist said that if it weren't for the wasted years, all the wealth and honor would have belonged to the dwarves. Because of this, they consider Hephaestus a thief. When Red Fist had all of them, he realized that there wasn't a single dwarf in that place who still had the soul of a craftsman. Now all they have is the desire for revenge. Now this young man understood why the dwarves considered people like that to be trash. Udamdiok added, someone who wants to destroy everything because he is jealous of the achievements of those who far exceed him, that kind of figure is trash down to the basics. Angry because Udamdiok's explanation seemed to be sarcastic to them, the dwarves prepared to attack Udamdiok. But the young man immediately asked them to stop and listen to him until he finished speaking. Udamdiok said that the dwarves' attitude would only make them look like thieves in the eyes of others. Could the dwarves, the great master craftsmen, and proud warriors, be able to endure such disgrace? Red Fist was shocked to hear this. This was the first time he heard a nickname like that for them. Great master craftsmen, proud warriors. Then Udamdiok asks if there is another way for all of them to take revenge on Hephaestus. A weapon made by Hephaestus happens to be in Udamdiok's hands, and he is just an ordinary warrior. If they call themselves great master craftsmen and proud warriors, they better forget the toys and fight him with all the weapons they made with their own hands. Udamdiok says defeating the warrior holding the weapon made by Hephaestus. Wasn't that supposed to be the dwarf's way of making Hephaestus pay for everything? If not, the dwarves will admit that Hephaestus is superior to them and the dwarves will immediately run away. One of Red Fist's subordinates was clearly annoyed to hear Damdiok's words. He says Udamdiok is not worth listening to and wants to shoot him again straight away. Red Fist turned very serious. He realized that what Damdiok said was true. Escaping doesn't feel like it lives up to its great name. He thinks Udamdiok is good at talking with that big mouth. In his heart, Udamdiok was touched because the dwarf caught the bait. Then the dwarf said he would fight with Udamdiok, but he must be responsible for calling himself a warrior if he couldn't hold out long enough until they proved that their weapons were much better than his. For his ridiculous statement that if the dwarves ran away, the dwarves would beat him until his bones turned to dust. Red Fish took a very large hammer and then with all his strength he ran toward Udamdiok to attack him directly. The young man was shocked, but fortunately he was able to dodge in time. Udamdiok saw the attack from the dwarf's weapon hit the ground, causing the ground to crack as if it had been hit by an earthquake. The Red Fist weapon attack was so powerful that it caused the pillar behind Damdiok to collapse. This young man was shocked because he had just realized how powerful the dwarves' weapons were. Red Fist slowly walked closer to Damdiok. He said that Udamdiok would have no chance of winning even if he succeeded in making Red Fist not use their firearms. Udamdiok takes a stance and says that he hopes Red Fist won't be too surprised when he sees his abilities. After saying that, Udamdiok started moving quickly toward Red Fist to attack him back. He drew his sword but the dwarf dodged it quickly and said that the attack was ridiculous. Red Fist tried to strike back by hitting Damdiok with his big hammer, but Damdiok was able to dodge and was quickly behind Red Fist. Even so, the dwarf did not want to lose. He also immediately threw his big hammer at Damdiok, but again the young man managed to dodge it. Red first admitted that the young man's abilities were extraordinary too, but Udamdiok said that it's not too early to be surprised. Damdiok almost hit a Red Fist, but the dwarf quickly kicked him in the shoulder, forcing Damdiok to step back first. Udamdiok said that it was the first time he was kicked with a shoe, and it felt a little painful. Then he praised the Red Fist as quite an extraordinary figure. While the Red Fist thinks that Damdiok is good at talking, he thought that Damdiok's attitude was quite strange from the start, but it was good that the young man understood his limits as a swordsman. Udamdiok asked if it was possible for Dwarf to know just from looking at my attitude. Red Fist asked back, which fool didn't realize it. He had never heard or seen anyone use a blunt weapon like that. But because Udamdiok's sword intent is sharp, his performance using a sword is quite good. Until the hairs on Red Fist's neck stood up. The dwarf wonders how long it has been since his heart started pounding like this. According to him, Udamdiok clearly has a level equal to or exceeding him. The dwarves who heard their leader's statement were clearly shocked. They didn't expect that there would be someone who had more fighting skills than their boss. Red Fist tore his clothes and immediately threw the cloth on the ground. He was really sorry for calling Udamdiok a low-class god and belittling him. Instead, this time he would respect Damdiok's strength and use all his strength. An extremely strong aura of anger immediately emerged from the Red Fist's body. Damdiok calmly told Red Fist to come forward. They both attack each other with their respective mystical weapons. A very strong clash occurred, and even so, they both refused to budge. They continued to attack each other until the clash of two weapons sounded quite loud. Red Fist and Damdiok both smiled as their two weapons clashed, creating an amazing sound. The dwarves who saw this started pounding. All of them, including Red Fist, realized that the sound of the two sharp weapons banging was like the sound of a blacksmith at work. The vibrations in the air, the roar of the lion, and the hot sensation from the firearm Damdiok used made the souls of all the dwarves feel as if they were being hit. Red first realized that he couldn't deny Damdiok's words, because instead of blaming himself for being incompetent, it's easier to blame someone else for being competent. Red first remembered the day he came to the workshop where Hephaestus was made. He still remembered well the strong emotions and big dreams they had when they, who were like frogs in their shells, came out into the big world. In the end, it always makes them realize their shortcomings, because no matter how hard they worked, in the end, they still couldn't make a weapon as powerful as the Hephaestus. This is indeed a sad story because after they came out of the shell, they actually intended to escape and betray Hephaestus. Because he was too lost in thought, the red fist weapon was put away by Damdiok. The dwarf realized that he had suffered absolute defeat, so he could only surrender when Damdiok intended to give him the final attack. But suddenly a large force appeared and immediately stopped the club Damdiok was using. Hephaestus, who was already standing between them, said that he was only gone for a moment, but the place had already become chaotic. He thought he had come to the wrong blacksmith's workshop. With a flat face and a scary aura, Hephaestus asked for a very detailed explanation of the problems currently occurring in his workshop. After hearing what had happened, Hephaestus said he had expected that Damdiok would fight, but he didn't expect that his workshop would be so messy. Hephaestus didn't want to extend that time. He turned to Red Fist and wanted to hear the dwarf's explanation. Red Fist prostrated himself and boldly said that all the chaos was his own doing. Has nothing to do with their tribe. Seeing their leader's sacrifice, the dwarves wanted to stop but were unable. With sharp eyes, Hephaestus asked if it was true that he did it himself, then what was the reason. Red Fist understands he can be punished if he makes the wrong choice, but his tribesmen have done nothing wrong except trusting their useless captain. So nervously, Red Fist wanted to admit that the mistake was his own doing. But Damdiok immediately touched his shoulder and interrupted Red Fist's words in a high tone. Damdiok smiled and said that he was the one who forced Red Fist to do it. Then he apologized to Hephaestus because everything was a mess. Red Fist was clearly very surprised to see Damdiok's attitude. He couldn't believe it. The person he almost killed was actually protecting him now. Meanwhile, Hephaestus smiled and said that he trusted Damdiok to look after the blacksmith's workshop, so Hephaestus asked Damdiok for the truth. Before answering, Damdiok took out a necklace and handed it to Mr. Hephaestus. The god accepted the necklace happily because he had been looking for it for a long time. Red Fist became even more afraid when he saw the necklace, because it was a necklace given to his subordinates to look after Damdiok. Red Fist panicked that if Damdiok told the truth, then not only would he be punished, but the entire dwarf tribe would suffer the consequences. Hephaestus asks where Damdiok found it. He couldn't find the necklace himself even though he had searched everywhere for it. Damdiok smiled and answered that Captain Red Fist had found the necklace for him. He had enough time because he had supervisory duties, so he told Captain Red Fist to take out all the items in the warehouse and then check them. Damdiok added Captain Red Fist's body is quite small, so after checking carefully from corner to corner, he managed to find his necklace. Mr. Hephaestus asked Captain Red Fist if what Damdiok said was true. Captain Red Fist was confused because he couldn't answer it. Suddenly, Mr. Hephaestus laughed loudly and said whatever the story, Damdiok had managed to look after his workshop well, and even finding the necklace was enough. Damdiok breathed a sigh of relief and said that he was flattered. Mr. Hephaestus grabbed Damdiok's shoulder and said that the young man was a good person. Now he understood why Thor liked Damdiok. Hephaestus took the hammer that Captain Red Fist had used to fight, then said that he was worried that the dwarves were losing motivation and neglecting their duties as blacksmiths. But it seemed he didn't need to worry, because the sound of the hammer when it collided with the sword Hercules entrusted to Damdiok could be heard even from Mount Olympus. But not a single scratch could be seen on the hammer. Mr. Hephaestus handed the hammer to Red Fist, saying that it meant the hammer had become a better weapon than it used to be. Hephaestus said that he always looked forward to the work of Captain Red Fist, then asked them to continue working with enthusiasm. With tears of emotion, the dwarves bowed their heads and said that they would be better. Then Hephaestus said to Damdiok that he had made the right decision when he entrusted the task to Damdiok. He not only looked after the place well but also helped him to find the necklace he had. Then from a portal, he took something and gave it to Damdiok. From inside the portal, a shiny box came out, and it looked extraordinary. Hephaestus said that because Damdiok had done a good job and exceeded his expectations, the box was a form of Hephaestus thanks to Damdiok. Damdiok thought that the box in front of him was something crazy, because it must be a special prize like the one given after completing an SS rank quest. Damdiok thought the club was the one he would receive as a gift. Then he said that it would be rude to refuse, so he would gladly accept it, and after saying thank you immediately opened the gift box. Upon opening the box and looking inside, Damdiok is confused and asks, "Isn't that a monster?" Hephaestus asked Damdiok to take a closer look, and it turned out that what was there was a baby fox. It looked cute, but if he left it as a pet monster it would feel strange. Hephaestus held the baby fox and asked, "Is it true that Damdiok doesn't need it?" After that, he whispered something into the baby fox's ear, so the baby fox smiled and then he changed shape into an amazing sword. Yu Damduk doesn't believe that the fox can turn into a sword. And it turns out it's not just a sword, it doesn't matter whether it's a sword, scythe, or spear, because this mystical animal can turn into anything, because it is the essence of a weapon which can turn into any weapon in the universe, as long as the weapon was the same size as the little fox's body. In other words, the little fox is very valuable because it is the property of a goddess. Even though the fox was very great, it was a shame that Damdiok rejected him. Because Yu Damdiok said he didn't need this mythical creature, Mr. Hephaestus turned around and said he would give this amazing animal to the dwarves. Yu Damdiok immediately put on a friendly face and said that he couldn't possibly refuse a gift from Mr. Hephaestus. Hephaestus asked, "Didn't Damdiok say earlier that he didn't need a pet? Has Damdiok changed his mind now?" With an awkward smile, Yu Damdiok said he couldn't possibly refuse Hephaestus' gift, he just wanted to be polite. Damdiok promised to take good care of the little fox, especially since he felt that the fox was very beautiful. Yu Damdiok said because the fox is white and its fur is soft, from today on its name will be Snow White. Hephaestus pointed his hand upwards from the little fox. Then he said that moon goddess Selena's property, he would transfer ownership of Moonlight Fox to Yu Damduk. After that, the little fox now belonged to Yu Damduk. He will also give some items from the debt for Yu Damduk to take with him. Hephaestus was about to leave there because he still had work to do and they finally separated. Yu Damdiok said to be careful of Hephaestus and he thanked him for worrying about him. After Hephaestus left, Red Fist started talking to Yu Damdiok. He asked why Yu Damdiok lied to help them, even though they planned to kill him if he got in their way. He's the definition of disposable trash, so what? Yu Damdiok answered that in his opinion, the Red Fist was similar to his previous self, who was once in despair and blamed the situation. Mr. Red Fist was shocked to hear that answer. He asks if Yu Damduk wants anything, but Damdiok asked the dwarf to don't worry because he wouldn't ask for anything. After all, don't they all live by helping each other? Regarding Lord Hephaestus, Damdiok was sure that the god probably knew from the start, but he just chose to ignore it. After that, he decided to say goodbye and go through the portal to return to his world. After closing, Red Fist bowed, then said on behalf of their tribe, he thanked Damdiok. Even though their tribe's name has been tarnished and cannot be washed away, he hopes that one day the stain can be washed away by repaying Damdiok's kindness. Once again he thanked me. Now they will all work a full night full of enthusiasm.